Hi, I'm Sean Bucci. I'm a realtor, a broker, and I've been selling real estate in the greater Charlotte market since late 1993. To date, thanks to large teams that I have in place, I've sold well over 1,000 transactions, successfully closed them. In 2006 and right into 2007, we were doing in excess of 5 million in closings a month, 6 months out of the year. When the floor dropped out of the market, we dropped to about half of that. In 2004, I was introduced, late 2004, to a father and son team that were investors, and they introduced me to the deed flip. Now, we did some business with that, but there weren't a whole lot of foreclosures going on at the time. In fact, money was so easy to get, people could refi if they got into trouble without a problem. That has changed. What I'm going to go into is the basics of how this works, the deed flip, basics of how foreclosure works, how these guys take advantage of loopholes in the system, the deed flippers, and how we can give you a 25% return in a 6-month period, guaranteed. Never been late, working with them 3.5 years plus, and unbelievable what they've accomplished. And I say that 3.5 years, that's how long we've been actively pursuing and placing quite a bit of money on these. Okay, the basics. In foreclosure, what happens is the bank is going to notify the clerk of court that somebody's falling behind. That notification is going to hit pretty early on. That's why people go to a realty track, because they look for that notifications where the foreclosure, the possibility of a foreclosure coming has been told to the clerk of the court. That's also the problem we're having with folks like Realty Track. Love them, it's trademark, not going to say anything wrong about them, but sometimes because of the way they do that, they report it as it's going into foreclosure and then when it actually goes into foreclosure. So there's sometimes double numbers there, and that was actually picked up by quite a few of the large newspapers and other media outlets. Okay, a court date is set. Most of the time these guys, if they can't get out of it, out of the foreclosure, they're not going to go to the court date. At that court date, they're going to reconfirm the courthouse steps sales date. That's when it hits the courthouse steps, and it is actually a foreclosure. Now, in North Carolina, there is a 14-day right of redemption. What that means is from the second it hits the courthouse steps and is being offered for sale as a foreclosure, the owner has the right to pay off the debt, make it right, and it's out of foreclosure, and they now own the home. Okay, North Carolina defines the owner as a deed holder. Whoever holds the deed is the owner. Now, that deed is an instrument that can be bought and sold. It has nothing to do with the mortgage on that property. If you get nothing else, as I go through this, please remember, the owner has the right to redeem that property for what is owed against it, including attorney's costs and so forth that have racked up because of the foreclosure process. They have the right to redeem that property. And the owner is defined as the deed holder in North Carolina. Remember that. Okay. Now, what will happen is it hits the courthouse steps, the investors start the bidding process. It's public, there's a folder there, you can usually, depending on the county, look up exactly who has it and who's bidding and where the bid is. Investors are now at about 85% of value is what they're buying it for. A large reason for that is the majority of the investors at the courthouse steps are not true investors, they're people buying a home for themselves. That's the hot thing to do right now, that's the status symbol. People are doing that, 85% or more of value, even if it's going to take 20% of the value to bring it up to speed. It's a big joke about realtors that people are actually going a little nuts about foreclosures right now. That's why this system's working so well. Okay, the property will sell or not at that point. Now, if it sells, it's either going to sell directly to an owner or an investor, or it's going to sell to a holding company that the bank has a deal with where they're going to buy it, or they're going to sell directly to an individual. Now, individuals and investors are going to pay 85%. Once it goes on the market, it'll be 85, at least 80% or more, even from a holding company if they sell it. Now, this is the second point that you have to remember about North Carolina, and this is why the deed flip works here. If you're considering trying this in another state, that's fine, but first of all, find out who is defined as the owner. Secondly, find out about profit. Now, this is national anyway, but where it goes and what happens to it. In North Carolina, and probably nationally or in most states, the bank can't keep profit for foreclosure. Think about it, guys. If you were one day late, they'd start a foreclosure process on you if you owed 50% on the house. I mean, what the heck, they're going to make profit, right? That'd be a profit enterprise for them. They're not allowed to keep profit. What they're allowed to have is any incurred costs and what was owed to them, including like attorney's costs and so forth. The overage is given to the clerk of the court. Very important. Now, here's what the clerk of the court does. Now, a lot of you guys may have seen those ads on TV. Oh, do you know you may be owed $20,000, $50,000? A lot of that has to do with this. Clerk of the court is charged to give that to whoever the owner was. They have to give it back. It's kind of like if you have a storage place. Okay, they have the right to sell what's in your store. If you're overdue paying it, they have the right to sell it. Now, if they sell it for more than what was owed to them in their monthly, they generally, in most states, they have to give you that back. That's why they do auctions and sell it for under what's owed, just because they don't want to go through the hassle. Clerk of the court is charged with giving that money to the owner. Again, North Carolina defines the owner as the deed holder. Remember, okay. Now, they don't make an effort to find the deed holder, even though they've got it right in front of them. They don't make an effort to track them down or anything else. They see it. Okay, they have copies of the deeds there. They're charged to give the overage to whoever that is, but they just throw it into account for now and just sit on it. That's all they do. Now, here's where my guys come in. This is why they started in 04 late doing this, is when I met them too, but I really got active last 3.5 years with them. Done quite a few deals, flipped well over probably $400,000, always paid on time, unbelievable. Biggest deal we ever did was a $200,000. Okay, they target the following. They look for homes where $150,000 or less is owed, the home is worth $150,000 or less. Why? That's the easiest market right now. It's the easiest thing to sell. Nobody wants to buy upper end because they can take the biggest hit on that. All right, it has to be in good condition. They look through it, they review it. There has to be 60% or less debt to value owed on this property. Now, just so everybody understands, the majority of the foreclosures the vast majority of the foreclosures that are going on right now, they're underwater. There's more money owed on that house than, seriously, there's more money owed on that house than it's worth. Or the best I've seen is 80% of debt to value. So this is extremely rare. To make my figures easy, let me give you an example. If there were 10,000 in North Carolina this month, and there's probably going to be more than that, I'm being conservative, you'll find that in everything I do. If there was 10,000, probably 1% would qualify for this, one, maybe two, but let's say 1%, that's 100 homes they have to do, that they have to choose from. They go to the seller and they say, listen, we're going to give you $5,000 for your deed. It's not going to get you out of debt, you're still going into foreclosure, but at least you got $5,000, you got something to work with. That's the easy sale for these guys. They have no problem getting that done. Now, the best example is, let's say it's a $125,000 home. We see a whole lot of these. That's what it's worth right now on the market, okay, in its current condition, $125,000. Let's say $75,000, the max, 60% is owed against it. These guys, okay, $75,000, that includes any liens on the property, any mortgages, any attorney's fees that have been incurred, and so forth. And there's usually a cushion built in there, $75,000. The flippers bought the deed for $5,000 from that seller. Now they could, at this point, redeem it. They own the deed. They could go to the courthouse steps of foreclosure and say, we're going to redeem it. We hold the deed. We're going to redeem this. We're going to give you your $75,000 you're owed and buy a house for $80,000 that's worth $125,000.